We begin in northern India, where at least 7 people have been reported killed and many more injured in a crush at the world's largest religious festival. The Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has described the incident as extremely sad and extended his condolences to the families of those who have lost their lives. The crush happened as tens of millions of Hindus gathered to bathe at the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna rivers on the most significant day of the Maha Kumbh Mela festival in Uttar Pradesh state.
Chaos and confusion at the Maha Kumbh Mela. That's how many Hindu pilgrims describe the Wednesday morning crush.
There was a huge crowd gathered for bathing when suddenly people started climbing over each other, leading to pushing and shoving.
There was a huge crowd, and in the pushing and shoving, someone fell and couldn't get up. It was like they were dead.
Ambulances rushed people to the hospitals. Some had to snake through the crowd. The crush took place near the confluence of the Ganges and Yamuna rivers, where a mythical river called Saraswati is also said to meet them. The faithful believe they can bathe away their sins at the site known as Sangam. Millions of pilgrims rushed towards the waters early Wednesday on one of the most auspicious dates in the Hindu calendar. As pilgrims rushed to the site, some people who were sleeping on the ground were trampled.
The crowd put so much pressure on us that we fell in the Sangam. My clothes got wet, and after I fell, 2 or 4 people went over me. I was picked up by the public.
There was a massive crowd coming from both sides, those going for the ritual bath and those returning. I was sitting near a barricade, and in the midst of the pushing and shoving, the entire crowd fell on top of me, trampling me as it moved forward. When the crowd surged, elderly people and women were crushed.
Crowd crushes are frequent in India, often leading to loss of lives. The state chief minister is now urging the pilgrims to not head to the Sangam nose, but bathe at the river banks wherever they are.
Let's get more on this now from Andreas Franz. He's a correspondent with the German public broadcaster ARD, and he's at the Kumbh Mela festival. Andreas, you're there on the scene where tens of millions of people are assembling. Describe for us what that's like and explain, if you can, what led to the tragedy there.
Well, as you can see behind me, all these pilgrims are going down the road, tens of hundreds of thousands probably since midnight. I was on that roadside at midnight, and you can just feel that when the holiest bathing day began of this festival, of this Maha Kumbh Mela, which only happens every 12 years, of course, there was a surge in the crowd. The excitement was growing. People were chanting, and everybody was on this road after midnight already going down. It was around 10 degrees, and nobody seemed to care about the temperatures. Everybody was very happy to be among the first taking that holy dip in Mother Ganges, as Hindus believe. And as you already said in that report, obviously there was a barricade that broke down, and we just heard that people were already camping there overnight at that tip where Ganges and Yamuna River meet. And obviously there were new people coming into that area, and that probably caused a small stampede that led to a bigger one, and that where all these, this tragic incident then happened, and where a lot of people, or a couple of people severely injured that were also put into the hospital, and then also, of course, casualties around 7. The official number is not confirmed yet.
I wanted to ask you what authorities are saying about it right now, because the opposition leader in India says that mismanagement led to the deaths at that festival. What are you hearing on the ground? What are authorities saying about that?
Well, they're, of course, saying that is not the case. We have been organizing this quite well, and I've been here now for 3 days, and I must say it is pretty well organized. crowds are being diverted, led around certain hot spots, so to say. Sometimes all those pontoon bridges, 30 altogether across the Ganges River, are being blocked so that also crowds are not gathering up too much. But on the other hand, I mean, today we expect 100 million people on one day, and even if it's only half the people, 50 million, how can you manage that? That's very, very hard to organize, I would think. But on the riverbanks, for instance, there are sandbags so that people don't fall into the river, and there's rescue crews everywhere because, of course, most of the Indians can't swim. And everybody's looking forward for that holy dip. So it's hard to say whether there's mismanagement really, but it seems to be more of a political blame game at the moment.
So we've had this tragedy with several people killed. We don't know exactly how many, and others injured. Are authorities taking additional measures now to assure that nothing like that happens again in the coming days?
Yes, absolutely. We just heard that the city has been blocked off. There is no entrance anymore from the airport, from the train station. Enough people inside Prayagraj. So the authorities do have taken measures, and also this morning, actually after midnight, the holy sadhus wanted to do a parade to the Sangam area where the tragedy happened, and that was not being processed. That was blown off at the moment, at least. But it's happening now. It has happened now because, on the other hand, I guess Prime Minister Modi said or feels that this is a very, very important part of this holy day, that the sadhus and gurus are able to go to that place. So I guess they're under special control.
Andreas, thank you very much for your reporting. That was Andreas Franz, correspondent with the German public broadcaster ARD, speaking to us from the Maha Kumbh Mela festival. Let's get more now on this developing story from DW correspondent Shalu Yadav in Delhi. Shalu, what do we know so far about that tragedy that occurred at the religious festival?
Well, not much, I'm afraid, Terry. Remember, it's been more than 12 hours since this incident happened past midnight India time, and the authorities still haven't given us any official figures on the number of deaths and, the number of those who are injured. And we also don't know the exact conditions on the ground late last night that led to this stampede-like situation. Now, the Prime Minister has, of course, expressed condolences for those who've lost their loved ones. But beyond that, we haven't really heard much. And usually in situations like this in India, the officials come out with the official statements, usually in the first couple of hours. There are helpline numbers, that are announced, but none of that is seen in this particular incident, which is quite strange. But unofficial sources from the ground are telling us that the number of those dead and injured could run in dozens, Terry. As you can imagine, this is a congregation of millions of people. And if something like that happens, the numbers are, I'm afraid, they're bound to be a bit high.
The opposition leader there in India says that mismanagement caused the deaths at this huge gathering. What are authorities saying about that, if anything?
Well, they haven't responded to the opposition party's allegations, the criticism. But that criticism of mismanagement is also coming in from religious leaders there who say that this kind of, the scale of this kind of event is not possible to be managed by the local authorities and just local police personnel and paramilitary. They say that the Indian army should be brought in for crowd management on the ground. I mean, look at the scale of this event. 400 million people over a period of 45 days are expected to converge in this place. That's almost the size of the population of America. And of those, 100 million people were expected just today because of the religious significance of this day in the Hindu calendar for the Hindus to take a holy dip in those waters. So they are saying that Indian army should have been called in. And the other criticism that the administration, the BJP government is facing is that of encouraging a VIP culture. Now, VIP VIP stands for very important persons in India. And in the last few days, we've seen that a lot of the ministers and the high-ranking officials have been visiting the Kumbh Mela for taking a holy dip themselves. And while their cavalcades, their cars, the convoys zip past these millions of people, the people who are being made to walk for miles and miles on end, and they have been complaining of mismanagement and lack of facilities for them on the ground. Terry.
Now, there are always safety risks when people gather in such large numbers, and the numbers in this case are extraordinary, tens of millions of people gathering. But this is not the first time that the festival has happened. Were authorities this time properly prepared for the crowds?
You're right, Terry. This is not the first time such an incident has happened, and there were preparations. In fact, the PR around this Mela was pretty huge. There were, CCTV cameras, thousands, in fact, of CCTV cameras, thousands of police personnel, paramilitary forces. AI was being used to, manage the crowd. But then it seems that this incident has put a dent in that claim by the authorities that their, management was quite impeccable, they said.
Shadu, thank you very much for bringing us up to date there. That was DW correspondent Shadu Yadav in Delhi.